Lester said he broke up with the Browns in what year?
Man, I was like fifth, sixth grade when John Elway
Oh, so you was
and the
done.
Broncos.
Damn.
So I didn't break up with him totally. I just emotionally detached.
We haven't learned how to do that. We got to learn how to do that over here as Browns fans.
But I want him to win though. I want him to
yeah,
win.
man, I don't know what's up.
He said they're not going to ruin my Sundays anymore.
Lester, who'd you grow up like who was your favorite team coming up?
Football?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, first and foremost, man, I was a McKinley Bulldog.
For sure.
I was that kid at the games with the jersey on, with the hat with all the buttons, smacking helmets when they used to come out the tunnel.
Oh, so you was a fan.
Yeah. I was a fan, especially mid '80s, '90s, and then I played 94, 95. I started 2 years at strong safety, so I watched a lot of the greats come through there: Percy Snow, Dean Brown, Chris Clacks, the Grimsleys. I mean, the list go on. So
you were like inspired in sports by the local guys.
yeah,
That's what's
yeah.
up, man. What made you want to like put on the pads yourself? Just watching it, or
Man, just watching it, and then in the hood, they used to have like turkey bowls at St. Benedict's back in the day, and at Belton Elementary. So we playing rough and tumble with your cousins, cats in the neighborhood. You start watching. I was just one of them ones that went to the games with my uncles, my grandfathers, and I was like, you know what? You start seeing you got a little bit of athletic talent. So I started playing, then started off in Camp Midget League, played at Hartford, and then it was like, I gotta get in Fawcett Stadium.
so what side of town? When we talking about Canton, what side of town you from? What's your area? Northeast?
Man, I was blessed, man. I had two hoods I grew up in.
Oh, okay. Where you grew up
So I started off right by Belton Elementary.
at? Okay.
So I was born in '77. My mom had me when she was 18. My dad was just a few years older, and just like so many other, young relationships, it didn't last.
Yeah.
So in my grandparents' house, it was a 3-bedroom house. My grandparents had one room. It was 3 boys in one room and 3 girls in another.
Ooh.
So when I come along, they say I cried, wah, wah, wah. So we had to move to Hillview.
You know Hillview.
We at Hillview. Yeah, man. You go to in Hillview, man. You go to use the bathroom. You sit down, do number 2. You would have to lift the toilet seat up because the roaches might be having a pool party. When you went to bed, you had to lift them sheets up.
Yeah.
Because they might be playing rough and tumble football up under there. Come in the house late at night. You flick that switch on, and then they just spray it all over the place. Yeah, so I stayed there. We stayed there. I mean, I think I was in like preschool in that time frame. And then we moved up like the Jeffersons in Stark Metro. We got a scatter site. We was able to get a scatter site by the old Washington.
Ain't it funny, like in Canton, moving up in Canton is just moving to a bigger crib?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was the same hood, but just on the other side. And so we moved there like right at the end of preschool, going into kindergarten, and we stayed there, man, all the way up until like my junior year. Man. So I had 2 sets of friends, because it was one of those duplexes right next to the old Antioch Baptist Church.
Wow.
And so I had my friends there, and then I had all my friends that was in my grandma's neighborhood right by Belton. So it was good, best of both worlds, 2 different hoods, and all that, and just the whole football vibe. Late '80s, '90s, Hurricane Katrina hit the hood.
Man,
and you start seeing all that stuff going on, but it was positive, and it was hood stuff going on too.
So let me ask you this. We talking about different time gaps in Canton because we different in age. Like, what was the city like then versus compared to now? Because you see all these changes in Canton, but you talk about like the city, how you grew up. What was it like when you was coming up in the city?
Man, overall, man, I think it was cool. I mean, you had a good blend. I mean, right throughout the city.
Yeah.
I mean, you had those who stayed in public housing. Then you had those who was blue collar workers, you know, that busted their butt, did what they needed to do to take care of their families, and I think it was just a good blend.
Yeah.
You know, Canton is a steel belt town, and you know, the factories here back then, and you know, people was taking care of their families and stuff. But then, just like nationwide, other stuff start moving in. You got your poor, middle class, wealthy, the have-nots was trying to make things happen so that they could have. You had working families trying not to be so heavily influenced by the negative, but it was a lot of positive going on, a ton of positive, and then you had your regular elements that was going on.
What positive would you say was going on? Because I see the things that you're doing. What were the positive things that you noticed coming up?
Man, so that's kind of so in both neighborhoods that I grew up in, you had your families that was working together, that was married. Then you had single families that was trying to make stuff happen. I would say I was blessed to be in a time frame near the end where families looked out for families.
You know what's crazy, Les? Not to cut you off. Like
No,
everyone that says that about Canton is like that sense of community.
Yeah.
A lot of the guests we've had.
Latrice, she was big on that.
Latrice Snodgrass,
Yeah.
you know, she talked about that sense of community in the city of Canton, like even the way she described it. Like, and I remember it too. Like, a good example would be like if you got in trouble from somebody in the neighborhood, you were in trouble when you got home. You know what I'm saying? But it's like now that's gone. You can't talk.
Yeah, I mean, I can, and then going to my grandma's neighborhood, I remember like where she stayed at and my grandfather stayed at on 4th Street. I mean, it was families all around that knew you by name. They knew your grandparents by name. If you was doing something you wasn't supposed to do, they had the right to check you. And then if you didn't respond the right way, they was coming to the house. And then for me, I would have had to answer to my grandma, my grandfather. I had aunts and uncles to answer to. And then when my mom come to pick me up, yeah. So, and you know, like, you know, I don't have that story where, you know, like the 50 Cent story, I was stabbed or shot a whole bunch of times, but it was like,
They come up, bro.
but growing up, it was like, my grandfather worked at LTV Steel. My paternal grandfather, he actually was one of the first police officers to get a squad car from walking the beat. His name was Walt Cherry. In Canton.
No way.
So the black business district on Cherry Street, he was one of those officers. The black officers couldn't get squad cars, so they had to walk the beat. And so he was one of the first ones to get a squad car. So I grew up in, I would say, a blue collar family, but then when there's 3 boys in one room, 3 girls in the other, your grandparents in the other one, that put us in public housing.
Man.
So it was, I think I would say I saw a good blend, and the biggest thing, like you were saying, man, it was that sense of community.
Yeah.
And then, you know, back then you had a lot of like sports you could get involved in, youth sports. There was a lot of activities, and then the summer job program, JTP.
Legendary.
So I mean, they had they had summer jobs all over the city.
What was your summer job?
Man, I was actually I started off doing vocation classes at Timken when I was like 14, and then I couldn't work 2 summers because my mom bouncing between jobs, income levels, because you had to have a certain income level. But my first job, main job, I would say, was my summer of my senior year. I was a youth I was a camp counselor, YMCA camp. So I'm down at the Southeast Community Center. Southeast Community Center. RC Hill said, "Hey Lester, I got a choice for you." He said, "Now, you can apply for these jobs. You can either cut this grass. You could cut grass all around the city, Fawcett Stadium. You could cut grass throughout all the neighborhoods, or you can come work at my camp." I said, "Man, give me a second. Let me think about it." He said, "You take a second to think about it." I said, man, give me them kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I could work hard if I needed to, but if I got the option, I went on ahead and took them kids. And it was like one of them moments, once I started working with the kids, it's like right then I knew, like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
And you realized that your senior year of high school.
I realized that, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. But I had traces before where I just like helping people. You know, so, you know, I was blessed to be able to live with to be able to be raised by my mom. My dad was in the Army, you know, and I was in elementary. He went to the Army, thought it was the best route for him. He was in Germany, Korea, Texas, and Kentucky from throughout elementary, my high school years, all those places. And I just was able to grow up with my grandparents and great-grandparents. So when my great-grandparents was older, they all had gardens. And so I wanted to make sure all their stuff was taken care of as they were slowing down. And then they also would give me some change so I could get some pop and chip money.
How much was pop and chip then? Because, you know, inflation now is $20 for a bag.
Man, you get pops and chip for like 75 cents.
Dang, man.
The good old days.
Both of them. You get both of them. In multiple stores around the city, you could get a pop and chip for like 75 cents.
Good luck in 2023.
I always heard those stories growing
Yeah.
up. You used to be able to go to the gas station, fill your tank, spend $10 for your entire tank.
Shoot.
Now it's like you spend $10, you got gas for the day.
I remember when gas was like 99 cents unleaded.
Gas station, now you look at the car, like, you know what, I might have to walk to work today. You know, this is just.
Let me get a scooter.
Yeah, those bird scooters add up though.
Yeah.
Add up quick.
Yeah, but I was blessed to grow up with, you know, my grandparents and stuff. And then from helping them, I started kind of like, when you know, people start talking about what you want to do when you grow up, I kind of just looked at different paths to help people. But then once I got that job at the YMCA camp, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And then with working with them in that summer, I was like, I like this age group, but probably middle school, high school overall. So that kind of like got pushed into it then. And then I did that for 2 summers. And then the following 2 summers, I was actually a worksite counselor. Paul Martin, who was the City of Canton director, he had like 10 college students who would be the supervisors over all the workers throughout the city. And so I was fortunate to be one of them, and I was like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do.
Man, that's beautiful that you realize your purpose to helping others.
And I washed some cars along the way.
I was gonna say,
I done cut some grass along the way. I used to earn money shoveling snow, doing odd jobs, cleaning out. My grandfather used to always pay me to clean out the garage and, you know, all the different odd job stuff that you could do. But as I was doing both, I knew, I was like, this is how I want to earn a living, working with young people.
And you learn that spirit of working, you know, from being raised the right way, and from other people, like just that hard working mentality. You know what I'm saying? What do you think, do you think that's needed now, like in regards to like just people wanting to work for something? Because it's like you started young.
Yeah, no, that's huge, man. I think no matter how you grow up, poor, middle class, or wealthy, man, work ethic is a part of what you need as a human being.
Yep.
And, you know, oftentimes those that come up or grow up without a lot, without the right support, you can process it wrong. So like I used to stand rain, sleet, or snow on Walnut Avenue and 5th in the food stamp line. So it's cold out there, it's hot in the summer, it might be raining, and so.
I'm talking to the mailman, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I ain't even got to say nothing about that. You got that. And I used to stand in line, and every once in a while I'd be like, man, Ma, why we got to stand in line to get these stamps? And so, you know, I had an urban mom. Sometime when she got mad, she would talk through her teeth. She'd be like, shut up, boy. You want to eat, don't you? Yeah. So I used to stand in the line and start thinking like, okay, this is where we at, but man, I would like to go to the grocery store with cash. like my grandparents do, or some of my aunts and uncles. And so I would just like sit like, what could I do to position myself where I didn't have to depend on a book of stamps. Right now they got the EBT card where you swipe it. So people don't know, but we literally had to bust them stamps out the book. And it wasn't that I was ashamed. I think early I had a sense of I want to be independent to the point where I could take care of myself and not depend on the government. So I always,
you realize that in you. That's beautiful, man.
Man, I think it was because I would say I probably was an old soul with growing up with grandparents. Yeah. So you had all these sayings and stuff. But I really think everybody has it in them. The question is, do you ignore it?
But it starts at home.
So you think that seeing people work so hard around you is kind of what got you to do that yourself?
Yeah. And, people only can be what they see sometimes. And so seeing that work ethic and then the work ethic back what I'm going to hold you responsible and accountable for whatever you do. So that was a big blessing that I had, man, between grandparents on both sides, aunts and uncles on both sides. You couldn't get away with nothing. So
nothing in the house.
And so, it forced you to accept responsibility. And then, I tell students all the time, right now I primarily work with more high school and college age, but man, turn your adversity into a university and learn from it. Because there's not a person that walked this earth that don't have some type of adversity. Facts. And that's key for people to realize, because sometimes you can grow up thinking that I'm the only one going through. You'll hear me keep saying it. It's people, poor, middle class, and wealthy. They're going through the go-through. The question is, how do you respond to whatever it is that you're going through? And I was blessed to have people to help me respond the right way.
You're really blessed with that. Let me ask you this, because we talk about that, but sports is a really big part of who you are. Mm-hmm. What did you learn through sports that applies to your life now and working with the youth?
Man, so it's funny you say that. I tell people, so Tom McDaniels was my head coach.
Shout out Tom McDaniels.
That's Josh McDaniels' dad, head coach of the why I'm hitting the blank. The Las Vegas Raiders, yeah. Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah. He got multiple Super Bowl rings with the Patriots being the offensive coordinator. But I look back, man, that was like a university in itself of the program that Tom had. And then my defensive back coach, John Spider Miller, it's just a lot of the stuff that they programmed us to be the best, to get the most out of us on the field. But a lot of it also transferred into everyday life.
You played with a good squad, huh?
Just being on time. Oh, man, so I was a senior.
He played for McKinley.
McKinley was nasty.
Yeah, so I was a senior. I was 94. I played in the 100th Master McKinley game. Ooh. The historic 100.
That was probably insane.
You talking about 26,000 over in Massillon, and we did lose the regular season game, and then we played them again in the playoffs. 35,000 plus at the Akron Rubber Bowl. People coming in still at halftime. People standing at the old Rubber Bowl. People standing, they're all in the seats, in the bleachers, standing all the way around, standing up and down, and all the way around. People still coming in at halftime.
Man, so you played like,
yes.
Like you said in the 90s, like when it was like.
Yeah, so I was a senior when the guys that won the national championship, Kenny Peterson, Jamar Martin and them, they were sophomores. And Mike Doss was a freshman. Ooh. So what was crazy, man, going into my senior year, we were projected to go 5-5. We only had maybe about 25 seniors, and only about 11 of us was actually talking about something. So when we seen that we were projected to go 5-5, man, we was like, hey, man, we ain't got time to be playing all these games stuff. We got to get these young boys ready to play with us. Yeah. And that's what we focused on. And, man, we went 8-2 my senior year. My junior year, we went Did we lose 2? Anyway, we either lost 1 or 2 my junior year, but then we went to the state semifinals playing Cleveland St. Ignatius back then, and that's when they was like a mini MAC conference team. Cats on both sides, only going one way.
They still do that.
Yeah.
They're insane.
Yeah.
They still recruit.
They're not as big as they used to be, but the formula is still there, man, between them, Cleveland, St. Edwards. So
The same coach,
that's the parochial schools, man, that's able to recruit and everything. But man, we it was some battles, man.
What was that energy like just going on them games? Like you described it with the size of the crowd, but what was them Friday nights like, man?
Man, I tell people all the time versus now, man, it was like the city lightweight, 3/4 of the city shut down. And we making our way to Fawcett Stadium. I mean, it's nothing, even regular season game, we could be, you could be playing just not your rival, Massillon, 17, 18,000 in the stands, depending upon who you playing.
Them was some good times, man. Fawcett would be lit.
Yeah, man, I just think about it now. Back then we had regular grass, you smelling the grass, the popcorn, just the whole energy. And man, Saturday, Friday nights, man, it would be lit up in there, man.
What position did you play?
I played strong safety.
Okay.
I was, at the end of the day, I was an undersized strong safety
But you held it down?
that put that work in though.
Ooh, you ran them out?
I did a little bit. I won't toot my own horn, but I would say I was probably.
Say what you mean.
Say what you mean. Let's
Say,
go ahead. Come
say
on,
what you
man.
mean podcast. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and say
You was meant
I would say I was a elite non-scholarship strong safety, because at the end of the day, 99.5% don't get scholarship to go to the next level, especially in football. And so, like my senior year, man, I was first team All County, first team Northeast Inland District, and I made the All Ohio team. I was special mention All Ohio, but that's 4. So out of all the teams in the state of Ohio, I was number 4. You got first team, second team, third team, and special mention, and then only being 5'7", like 170 pounds. And the teams when I was in high school, man, my teams was Ohio State and Notre Dame. And so you talking about playing safety at that level, I mean, you talking about 5'10" and taller. So
So you kind of had to put in that work and prove yourself.
yeah, man, with only being 5'7", man, I had to be relentless in the weight room. I had to be relentless with conditioning, because I had to compensate for my size. And being a strong safety, you really in the 4-3 defense, you almost like a linebacker. And so I had to compensate for size and speed and strength.
Tell me a play or a moment in any of the games that's one of your favorites, being an athlete playing for McKinley.
Man, so we lost the Victory Bell in '94 in Massillon. And growing up, the Victory Bell would go back and forth.
I don't know about now.
So right now it's lopsided. The Victory Bell been on their side for a long time. So, but we trying to put it in the direction where where it's the natural order of things that stay on, go back and forth.
Sure.
But I always said if we ain't got the Victory Bell, I'm going to go get it. So my senior year, man, I left the game with like 11 solo tackles, 4 assists, and 1 interception.
So they let you walk in and get the bell.
So
Playing like that.
that clock was going down. I'm looking up at the clock, looking down the sideline. There it go. Everybody over here celebrating when it's like 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. I'm like, boom, right across the field. And I'll never forget, my tailback, Adrian Brown, was like, Lester, I knew your butt was going to get to it, try to get to it first. So I'm sprinting across, and then I didn't realize how heavy the bell was. So I sprint across the thing, I try to grab it and start taking off. I almost ripped about half my stomach muscles out. And then by that time, he got here, and so on the way, he was throwing out some expletives like, man, I knew you was going to try to get here before I got here. But actually, I was glad he came because then we both pulled it across the field. Yeah, we both pulled it. We both pulled it across the stage together. Across the field together. But that would say that's the huge moment. And I say I went out with a bang because I wasn't the kid that got the scholarship, that wanted the scholarship. And then, man, another moment for me was our senior year, Cleveland St. Ignatius was running the table on people. Like they hitting boys 48 points, 30 points. Couple of them games got up in the 60s. And we was like, our defense, we had our own meeting. We ain't wait on the coaches. The coaches did what they was supposed to do to prep us, but we had a meeting ourselves. Like, they not doing that to us. They ain't gonna do it to these inner city boys.
60 points on us, no football,
and you know, it was one of them things is like, you go in the game trying to win, but you know how stacked they was. And they got, on both sides of the ball, 4 to 5 cats going to major D1 schools and everything. Man, at the end of the game, I don't remember how many tackles I had, but I did have an interception that game, and it was 13-0. So when they won the state that year, you go down that list, they looking at everything. They won the state championship, but it always was like, oh, they only beat Camp McKinley 13-0. Because we was like, we ain't having it. So they only scored once, and they kicked 2 field goals.
So y'all definitely put that pressure on.
Yeah. We was like, nah, it ain't happening to us.
It ain't happening from us.
Right.
Hillview, bro.
Right. Hillview, some other cats. Yeah. But then it was a good blend.
Yeah.
Of kids back then, man. And at the end of the day, we just like, it ain't happening to us. So if you gotta lose, we're gonna lose with some integrity in the right way.
That would have been probably a great game to watch. Game like that, all defense. That's all defense.
It was
13-0.
It was a game, and then what was sweet was the tailback. We had our own. Back then you had a freshman schedule, sophomore schedule, JV, and then varsity. And so the same tailback, we always, we going at it the whole game. So it was always, he called me 2-8. That was my number, and I'm calling him 2-5. And at the end of the game, my senior year, he was like, man, 2-8. Man, we didn't have some battles. He said, man, this is the most physical game we play every year. So you talking about cats that won the state championship multiple times back then, but he like, this is the most physical game we play every year. So I think it's a testament, man, to the program, the history, and just the program that Tom McDaniels had back then, man, because he ran it like it was a college.
Would you ever be a coach? Like, would you ever get into head coaching, like a high school football team? Or?
So I had coached freshmen, defensive backs for 4 years. I loved it, but coaching in high school is really more tailor-made to that teacher schedule. Because if you don't work as a teacher or within the school district, if you got a job, you still got to make sure you got all your responsibilities, because school is out at 2:30. And so while I really liked what I was doing, it was kind of taking a toll. And then that's when I shifted to, let me move to player development. Then that way I can come in for my time slot to do what I do stuff for a little bit versus that whole time commitment that a coach that you got to put in.
I did that. That's what's up, Lester. I'm glad we was able to have our Sports Center moment on the first half of this.
Yeah.
I dig that.
First take.
Hell yeah, for sure.
Get my Stephen A. on.
Yo, Lester, man, before we go on this break, where can they follow you at, man? Shout your social media out real quick.
Man, my website is lestersanders.com.
Okay.
You can definitely hit me on YouTube. I ask that if you got a YouTube account, go ahead, hit subscribe, hit that bell. Yeah. I got some stuff on there.
You can pull this bell.
Yeah. Yeah, you can pull this one. You ain't gonna rip no stomach muscles out.
Click it, that's it.
But it's, the YouTube handle, and then / Lester Speaks.
Okay.
On Instagram, Lester Sanders.
All right, Micless, what about you, man? Where can they follow you at?
Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @zworthy68. That's all I got. That's my social.
All right.
Okay.
And you can follow me Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok @JeanPeterMC, and my website JohnPTheMC.com, episode 76. Lester, you gonna stick around with us for a minute, man?
Yeah, man, this is the Say What You Mean podcast, man. This is my first podcast I've been on, so definitely want to say big ups for inviting me.
Of course, man.
It's crazy that when you called me, like I said, you know, when we was talking before we started recording, it was like I was trying to okay, I need to start trying to see if I can be some guests on the podcast, you know, build relationship, get exposure. And then when you called, I said, yep, it's time to move.
This is the best podcast to start at, man, because it's like you want people to know who Lester is, you know what I'm saying? Get to know who you are. So
cool, appreciate it, man.
This. Man, we're going to take this break. John P. the MC, Seaweeds, under the weather. He couldn't be here with us today. Micless Zach, you got a chance to get a mic again. So Lester, check this out. Micless Zach, he's not supposed to have a mic, but he got one today.
Wow. Okay.
His character's name is Micless Zach. So any other time he'd be on the show, but he wouldn't be in front of the mic.
Okay. So if you're around enough.
But you can hear him.
Yeah.
You hear me in the background. I am a background voice.
Are you okay?
So this
Cool.
is a rare thing, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So this is John P. the MC, episode 76. Lester Sanders, say what you mean. Peace. Yo, what up? John P. the MC, say what you mean. Episode 76. We got Micless Zach in the house.
What up?
We got Lester Sanders in the building. How you feeling, man?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. First podcast, say what you mean.
You got me
So
on the field
I'm enjoying the vibe.
Got me want to put some pads on. Micless,
Did you play sports any, John?
Yeah, man. I ran some track.
Okay.
You know, I'm hip hop. You know
Okay,
what I'm saying?
you was just all about the lyrics.
I'm all about the lyrics. My dad was the athlete.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Micless Zach, did you play sports?
Oh yeah, football, and then I did shot and disc and track. I was a thrower.
Okay.
I like shot and disc. I almost like track more than football, honestly, because like once you get out of football season, you get to the track season, it's just more laid back, kind of relax a little bit, but you still have fun. You know?
Yeah. So we talked a lot about football in the first segment, but then also I wasn't a hooper. I was gym class nice and hoop. I could I could lead gym class with 12 points, but organized ball, I wasn't all that. But when you talk about basketball, man, I can't be on here and not. I remember watching John Johnson play for Timken.
Man, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. That's
and this all city night at the field house, Timken and McKinley plays jam packed.
Man.
I remember, man. He was nice. And I ain't just saying that because I'm on the podcast. It's some folk that I know was nice, and he was one of them.
Thank you, man. It's an athlete on the show that said that. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, in Canton, all guys like, yeah, I played for McKinley, but they ain't play.
Yeah.
On the field.
Oh, it's a lot of
come on.
it's a lot of players that just had uniforms on,
especially in Canton.
or they boy actually played, but they.
Hey man, that's only something people in Canton get. It's like you be like, oh, y'all played for McKinley. All right, did you play?
Yeah.
Or did you just sit on the side?
And I ain't throwing no shade on the one who didn't play.
Right.
But did you play, or did you really play?
Was you on team or did you play?
Yeah. Man, I tell you, I forgot to say it in the last segment, man. But you know, we talked about my whole career and everything. But man, I lucked up. In 2014, man, they put me in the Hall of Fame.
Really?
Yeah, man.
They didn't tell you?
Huh? No. They told me. I went through everything. I was just, just trying to add. When you talk about say what you mean, I was just trying to add and say, man, I'm in the Hall of Fame.
Last time trying to confirm in this episode, he was nice. That's what he was trying to tell about in this podcast. He played and he was good. That's what's up.
I was nice, man. And then.
Hall of Famer on the show.
Yeah, man. So the Camp McKinley Hall of Fame, not the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but the Camp McKinley Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That's like connected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So
Yeah, man, you right
Yeah,
there, bro.
yeah.
You say it, Lester, let me ask you this, man. So we talked a lot about sports. After high school, when did you really start like getting hands-on with trying to help athletes and student athletes?
Man. So I had to backtrack some years for that. So when did I say it again?
I basically want to ask you, like, after high school, when did you kind of like, because you went to Kent.
Yeah, I went to Kent State University, and I was on a preferred walk-on list, and I walked on.
How was that? What was that experience like?
Oh, man. It was a good experience, But in college, man,
It's more intense.
that's a grind
Yeah, I bet.
when you paying for college and not on scholarship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was on a preferred walk-on list, and leaving high school, everybody talking about trying to go D1, and without getting any offers, but I was on a preferred walk-on list because actually I was being recruited by them, and the guy who was recruiting me, him and the whole coaching staff going into my senior year, they got fired.
Oh, man.
So you bring in a whole new regime of coaches, and then I just stayed on the walk-on list versus the offer list. And so it's a lot of work being a scholarship athlete, but it's a whole lot of work when you talk about being a non-scholarship athlete.
But you gotta work.
Yeah, you gotta, while they working out in the summer, some of them work, but majority didn't because they were on scholarship. I'm working in the summer because my mom paying for school all by herself. And so that was the hardest part. And then kind of with the lack of information, this ties into how did I start working with student athletes? I shouldn't have walked on at Kent State.
Why you say that?
So when you 5'7",
Yeah.
170 pounds, my athlete idol, his name was Jeff Burris. He played for the University of Notre Dame. He played with Jerome Bettis, and he was a safety. So so he was that one we used to go. It used to be downtown Canton, the News Depot. Every year I would go to the News Depot right before the season started, and they had the magazine that had the top of every position. And so I had Jeff Burris, had him up on my wall. What's the one? What's the? Is it the Biggie joint? It was all a dream. Used to read Word Up magazine.
Saw the pepper and heavy skipping the
thing.
Yeah.
And then he said somebody was on his wall.
Every Saturday.
Was it somebody on his wall?
Mr. Magic, heavy pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, Rap Attack, Mr. Magic, Marty Marr.
Yeah, well he had pictures on his wall, but Jeff Burris was on my wall.
Lester got me rapping.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm about to rap though.
So I watched everything he did, and I watched some other safety too, but he was the guy for me. But watching Notre Dame, Power 5, especially independent back at that time, it didn't register that Jeff Burris was 6 foot. And so while we only seen the teams that's on TV, that's all we knew. So everybody trying to get to these teams. But I didn't know about as much about the lower level or mid or lower level Division I's. Sure enough, didn't know about all the network or conferences for Division II and Division III, because at the end of the day, when you start hitting Power 5, mid, low D1, Division II, is really all about player profile.
That's real.
It's a ton of talented cats between 5'7" and 5'10", but then you got to go run up on a tackle that's pulling. He's 6'8". So, like for example, Kent had a tight end that got drafted by the Falcons, O.J. Santiago. I'm running at 5'7", running a 4.5. He's 6'8", tight end, running a 4.5. I can't get away from him.
No.
So you dealing with all these bigger guys, but with the right information, I would have walked on to a division that was more my profile.
What division would you have? What school would you have walked on to? Or what school do you think you would have been able to play at?
Man, I probably, knowing the information I know now, I would have did like a Walsh Division II, Ashland Division II, Slippery Rock. But then really settling in there, I think I could have made it and probably earned a scholarship there, but I was heavily recruited by Mount Union. And man, they had my jersey. Coach Karras was flashing the rings. But the only thing is Mount Union Division III, private university, my mom couldn't foot that bill. Because Division III is no scholarships. And so, I missed the 96, 97, 98 national championship. They was recruiting me like I was a D1. And so going through that process of being recruited by Mount Union, which was D3 private university, Wittenberg, Tiffin, they was Division II, Dayton and Duquesne, who was Division I, but they was non-scholarship. And then I picked 2 schools just to, because I knew I needed to go to college, because working with kids, I got to have a degree to play the game. So I said, if I'm going to just go to school and football is over, I chose Akron U or Kent. And because I was on Kent's preferred walk-on list, I went to Kent. But man, I remember the day my mom dropped me off, her, and my uncle Dwayne, and dropped me off. I got my stuff set up in the dorm room. Then the players came back from the stadium, and I'm looking like, what in the world did I get myself into? Yeah. How big these cats was. But then they were the small giants amongst the giants. When it comes to the bigger division.
I didn't even see the biggest guy.
Yeah. like they had a center, his name was Bob Halen. I would talk to him on campus. He got drafted by the Browns. Okay. So even though back then Kent would get pumped for like 50, 60 points sometimes. But they were still D1. Yeah. And I'm talking to Bob Halen, looking up to him on campus. You know, we talking, but my head's tilted back because that's how big he is. And so because of that experience, that some of it I didn't know while going through the process, is like, instead of being that athlete that's bitter or never can move on in life, at the end of the day, a life skills educator, I want to educate the next generation. And then going back with growing up in the hood, navigating a lot of the obstacles and hurdles, I threw out there, in the 80s, Hurricane Katrina flooded the neighborhoods. But then you talking about the war on drugs back then. Yeah. So, Nixon got that ramped up. Carter ramped it up some more. Reagan ramped it up some more. Bush 1 ramped it up some more. And then Bill Clinton came with a baseball bat and hit a home run with the 94 crime bill. Yeah. And so I watched with poverty and folks trying to find a way to earn a living, I watched people's lifestyle go from here to here. Those that got caught up, those that didn't have any hope, they got caught up on some of the drugs and stuff. I mean, like, I watched, so New Jack City, the movie came out, and I saw Chris Rock playing Pookie, and I was like, man, if that's what that crack do to somebody, I ain't touching it. I don't want no parts of it. And then I was blessed to have a conscience, and it's like, I ain't selling that to nobody.
But some didn't have that because they didn't have those resources to not. Like, you got to think, in that time, when it came to what you was talking about, like with drugs and stuff like that, the things that were around you, it's so easy to get caught up in it. Yeah. Especially being from Kent.
Yeah.
Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing to be like, oh, you want to sell some weed? All right, cool. There's somebody here. You want to sell this? Cool. But you chose a different route.
Yeah. And
I think that's beautiful.
A quote I remember by Dr. King, he talked about in a message that we are in this vast ocean of materialism. I might be off with the quote, but I'm trying to paraphrase it. But he talked about we're in this vast ocean of materialism where we're comparing. And so those that don't have, seeing what those who have. And it's like, it's natural human instinct to want some things, and then to want the things that you need, and to want some wants that you just want. Sometimes people maybe possibly drop their standards or their consciousness, and they take an alternative route that ain't the best route. Yeah. And so I saw a lot of people take that route. I mean, they talk about how the streets lead to death or jail. I had a cousin that was killed in kind of like a botched drug deal. He rode up at the wrong time just to make a purchase for use, and he got mistaken as somebody who just came and robbed.
Man, my condolences.
And so watching that, going to Hartford, 2 classmates within that time frame in class on Friday didn't make it back to class on Monday. So you talk about, and then on top of failing 2nd grade not liking that feeling, that getting left behind. So you add all those things that was going up from like 84 all the way up to the mid 90s. I was like, how can I use this education to be able to help somebody make better choices and decisions? So I had majored in criminal justice, and I focused on prevention in the juvenile justice system and positive youth development. Positive youth development is the non-academic factors to student success. So I just looked at my passion for helping people. How can I help people overcome the obstacles and hurdles of growing up in the hood? Because back then when I was in college, that's all I focused on. But as I worked on my skill, getting more experience, I was like, man, I found out I had a gift to be able to reach all students. But of course, there's always like a target or niche that you have a passion for. But I found I had a passion to work with students across the board, man. And so that's how I got into student athlete development, and I try to give you a backdrop of how I got into student development. But man, there's so many student athletes, man, who are putting all their eggs in one basket. At the end of the day, you can get on NCAA.org right now. Nationwide is like 8 million athletes.
Damn, that's a lot of athletes.
Like people, I mean, you think about it, the population of the United States, Stark County is one of 88 counties in Ohio. Ohio is one of 50 states in the United States and its territories. So you got millions of athletes nationwide.
Yeah.
Only 2% male and female get scholarships.
Why is that percentage so small? With it being so many athletes?
So it's about 4,300 colleges roughly. There's only for scholarship colleges, there's only so many slots. To break it down and just keep it 100 with you on the Say What You Mean podcast.
That's right.
You can't give all tuition away to every student, because at the end of the day, college is a nonprofit, but it's a nonprofit business.
Yeah.
So there's academic scholarships and there's athletic scholarships. So there's only so many free slots that I can give you to earn a degree. And at the end of the day, there's only so many scholarship slots. And so when you talk about 8 million athletes funneling into a certain number of slot students, colleges, only 2% male and female. And so my message to student athletes is be balanced. Go hard if this is your goal or your dream. But because of what the numbers say, that the NCAA is saying that you might have to go pro in something other than sports, you need to be able to look at what is your next steps if your number is not called to the next level. Because I wish we had a graphic we could show like 8 million and then show what 2% of 8 million is.
See, you being an athlete from Canton, that's the one thing I kind of noticed even when I was in high school was like, these guys is great athletes, but like they never showed them, school matters too. You know what I'm saying? So do you think, was that going on when you were at McKinley? Like they're showing y'all the game, but they not showing y'all a life after football. It just kind of seemed like being in Canton is just sports.
Yeah, so I mean, being the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I mean, it's where football started. And so sports is heavy.
Very heavy.
For me, that's not the problem. The problem is the information that's being spread. And I think there's some schools, people in the community, they try to spread the information, but you being young, sometimes everybody not listening.
That's a fact.
But there could be a greater effort in getting the education out about what was going on. So those numbers that I'm talking about, I had no clue back then. But I'm thinking like, man, I'm trying to go get a scholarship and go to the league to get my mom out of public housing. But not understanding, man, it is 8 million plus student athletes and there's only so many slots.
And other ways to get your mom what she wants.
Yeah.
More than just being on the field.
And that's the key, is getting people to say that sports is a way, not the way. So it's a career exploration process, because if I don't get if my number does not get called, I need to be able to look at what are my next options. So I think between middle school, 9th through 12th grade, you have to be able to start really doing a heavy career exploration process. And I think that's the big problem, because if I'm only leaning towards sports, but haven't put any effort into what's my purpose, what's my talent, what's my gift, what am I interested in? So we got my son who's 14, he's a 9th grader at McKinley. You know, I'm on him right now, and all the students that I work with is like, you can't go from 9th to 12th grade only doing the things that bring pleasure, in the sense of video games, in the sense of just having fun. There's nothing wrong with good, clean fun, but I gotta be able to balance having fun, but also preparing for the future. And I think that's the big part that I watch too many athletes not prepare for their future.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if only 2% is getting scholarship, it's a bunch of people that got to go pro in other than sports. So you hear about the nice athlete that went to so-and-so school, but he only made it first semester, or he only made it 2 years. Well, at the end of the day, there's a whole education that needs to come along with just making the high school to college transition. It's a whole different skill set that you got to start learning. Because why? If we talk about, you know, Canton, City of Canton is an inner city school, a lot of times you're dealing with first generation, or maybe a few that went to college in the family. But we talk about the pretty brochure on campus. We talk about the dorms, but don't talk about the life of being a college student when you off on your own all by yourself, and you got to manage your own time.
What are some tips that you give, like, to student athletes when it comes to, like, it's a life outside of sports? What are a few tips you can give on the podcast that you would give to some of these students?
Oh man, for number one, whether you a student athlete or not, I got what I call the big six. Number one, you got to develop a vision for your life. Where do you want your life to go? And you got to spend some time in trying to figure out, what do I see myself doing for 30 plus years? Because the average American works for 30 to 35 years before they retire.
That's real.
So what do I see myself doing? So I got to begin a career exploration process, because at the end of the day, bills don't pay themselves. Food, clothing, and shelter don't pay for themselves.
You know, chips and drink ain't 75 cents no more.
Yeah. No, I mean, what they like $2 now. It's a little bit. And so you got to start thinking, what do I see myself doing for a long time that would make me happy? Or I want not just happy, but bring fulfillment in my life. So I got to have a vision. Vision is simply saying, where do I see myself in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s? Not just in the area of making money, but do you see yourself traveling the country? Do you see yourself traveling the world? What do you see yourself doing outside of work? Do you have do you see a family? It's just all the type of things. What type of lifestyle do you want? Because I don't think there's nothing wrong with trying to have a middle class or even rich lifestyle. But the question becomes, what vehicle are you using to get there?
Not to cut you off,
no, go ahead.
Ask you, with the climate though, like, with that vision, like, dealing with these nowadays, these kids want to go viral. Mm-hmm. Like, is that a frustrating thing too, dealing with that? Like,
man, the analogy I try to get them the same way I talk about is 8 million student athletes, like high school, and there's only so much that way smaller percentage that go to the next level. In the same way with trying to go viral, you can go viral for a second, like the latest one was about the chicken salad lady.
I'm not going to that part of the
yeah. But it's like, you can go viral, but the question becomes, you can go viral, but does viral gonna take care of food, clothing, and shelter?
You did, man.
Because not all viral gets taken care of.
You talking to a hip hop artist, trust me. Everything that's viral ain't hot.
Yeah.
Not all good.
Yeah.
Not all good viral.
And for me, we know that, you know, it's stuff that go viral, but then some stuff that has substance and meaning may never go viral.
Facts.
But it's just one of those things of, and I ain't knocking the cat videos that go viral, but it's just.
I ain't knocking the pimple popping videos.
Yeah.
I'm knocking those ones.
Yeah.
Get off my
Yeah, I don't got watch that.
Yeah, but it's just like, you know, you can't get caught up in thinking that I'm going to make it big, because
You gotta be realistic.
you got to be realistic and go after some worthwhile and obtainable goals. And maybe your big might be 300,000 a year versus 80 million. But 300,000 where I come from from government assistance is huge.
Yeah.
And so it's like then you got to be realistic about what industry you in. Those that make ridiculous amounts of money is in athletics, entertainment. We could look at how some of the greats in hip hop earn they fortune. And you just got to know what industry you in and be realistic about it.
That's the one thing, even though it's two different avenues, when you're doing music and you teaching athletes, that's the common thing is being realistic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I think it's really important to be realistic in music and in sports. You know what I'm saying? Like we said, not everybody on this McKinley team is going to get a first pick, and that's like how it is in hip hop. Not everybody going to sell a million records because in the music industry, people ain't buying music like that.
Yeah,
it's like
that didn't change. That whole method didn't change up.
Even in sports, like not everybody getting them 30. They think. I think the big perception with athletes is like, oh man, we make it, and everybody get $1 million contract. Some of them guys is making just to get by. And
I'm gonna tell you what allowed me to really deal with the dose of reality. So going into my senior year, you got Mike Doss coming from Hartford Middle School.
Right.
So I started 10 regular season games and 3 playoff games. But this is Mike Doss, who people see early. This dude is going to get a scholarship.
Legend. Shout out Mike Doss, man.
Man, big up to Mike Doss. Just hit the 22 inductee into the College Football Hall of Fame.
Congratulations, Mike Doss. Come on, say what you mean, man.
But you talking about this, he's a strong safety.
Same position.
Same position. Now the question becomes, is he going to be a 4-year starter or a 3-year starter based upon the work that I put in? And so that was a gut check, reality check that this dude's a superior athlete as a freshman. The only thing I have is game experience on him, faster and stronger. But if he was a sophomore or junior, I'd have had to move to free safety. So that was dealing with reality of making sure I did what I needed to do. And then you got to be realistic about your talent level, man. I mean, I was a good, strong safety, but at 5'7", that ain't gonna. When you running up on Jerome Bennis's, when you running up, what's is it? Derrick Henry that played for the Titans.
6'4", 250, right?
You gotta have a body that can support that contact.
Just like you said, you was gym nice.
Yeah.
Basketball, I'm like that on 2K. I ain't on the real court.
Yeah. You gotta be honest. You can't talk about you Steph Curry.
I'm Steph Curry on 2K.
On the real court.
But I don't know the real court.
But you Jamie Curry. You Jamie Curry.
you actual Curry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I mean, you just gotta be realistic about stuff and be realistic about your talent. I'm gonna tell you another thing that made me be realistic, and it was the day that I decided at the end of the season, I'm done being a walk-on, I'm gonna just finish my degree. Kent State is playing Marshall. Mm-hmm. Marshall has Randy Moss.
Oh yeah, bro, get your degree.
He put on a clinic. Our best corner couldn't do nothing with him. And fast forward it, that he be on ESPN, you got Mossed. Man, I got mossed at that guy. I said, I'm done. No, I didn't get in the game. I watched and got mossed. Yeah. I was like, if our best corner can't do nothing with him, I'm like, I recognize the levels of athleticism.
He gonna just step.
You talking about vertical?
Yeah.
You talk about speed. He running a 4.2. You running a 4.5. You're not catching it.
Wingspan.
Wings, all that. And so I really start being realistic about athletic ability, and I said, you know what, the percentages is real small that guys walk on, get the scholarship, and then keep going forward. So my vision, I didn't let my vision just be wrapped up, or my sole identity be wrapped up in being a football player. And then, going back to my big 6, you got to make healthy and responsible life choices.
I like that.
You know, we all make mistakes, but you got to make sure that your positive choices or your healthy choices for your life is going to lead, because if I make negative choices all the time, it's going to lead me to negative. But if I make positive choices, it's going to increase the likelihood that I can have success. Right. So you got to have a vision for your life. You got to make healthy and responsible life choices. And then you got to be resilient. Life going to throw some punches in your nose. Amen. It's going to throw some gut shots. Mm-hmm. It's going to knock you down. But the question is, will you bounce back? So life choices, I got to make healthy and responsible life choices. I got to be resilient. Then you got to find your source of motivation. What motivates you to get out the bed every single day? For me, it was easy. I like to eat. I need food, clothing, and shelter. Let's just start with the basics. A lot of time people, they want to be motivated by a Bentley. Man, we human beings, you need food, clothing, and shelter. And I don't want to depend on nobody else to take care of that.
Can't drive no Bentley on an empty stomach.
Yeah. And then, you know, growing up in a single parent home, like I said, I was blessed to have the support of my family. Even though my mom and dad wasn't together, I still had my family. But I just didn't like he was so far away in the Army, but I just didn't like, I got to call my uncles. I got to call my grandfather. I got to talk to him distance. I said, man, I want my kids living with me when I get older. So I used my future kids. I got a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old son. Like, there was my motivation to keep moving forward, because I knew as a dude, sooner or later, you probably gonna have a kid. And, I just started thinking of some practical stuff. Right. I'm like, man, I gotta at least be able to have at least a 1-bedroom apartment, a piece of car to get around if I need to, and I need a job. And so it was just like, you gotta find the things that will motivate you, but then also helping people was the thing that motivated me. Help another go past the obstacles and hurdles that you was able or blessed to be able to overcome. So vision, life choices, be resilient. I gotta find my motivation, and then you gotta be persistent.
I dig that, Lester.
You can say you can say what you want to be, but as soon as you say what you want to be, there's gonna be obstacles and hurdles that come along to prove if you're really gonna be what you said you're gonna be.
And like, yeah.
Yeah. And then the last one is, man, you need some financial foundations, man. You gotta understand how capitalism works. You gotta understand gross net income. You gotta understand understanding, like, once you get your net check, what do you do with it? You gotta get your emotions in check, because you can have the emotions and you will spend your money, but then you broke. And so you got to have some basic financial foundations on earning, spending, budget, saving, and investing. And so those are the things I think everybody need, whether you're a student athlete or not. Those 6 things, and it's a whole lot more. I teach. I got 31 what I call super skills. Those big 6 is super skills that I think that's non-academic, that we don't teach enough. Because if I got a vision and I have an understanding of how the world works, I'll find out that, football, basketball, any other sport, from football to badminton, it's a business.
It's a business.
And so if that's not my business anymore, if I focused on my business, then I can find the next route that I'll be able to take and go pro in something other than sports.
My question for Lester, I want to ask you this: what's your goal? Like, how far do you want it to go with teaching student athletes? Like, how far do you want it to go? Like, what's your cap? Like, how far do you want it to go?
Man, my job, and I've learned this, as you grow and mature. My job is to be a seed planter.
That's dope.
And so my daily job is to walk around with a big bag of seeds and just spread them.
Because they're going to keep growing.
And the more I spread, some the seeds fall on good soil.
I like that.
Some it fall on the sidewalk, somebody's soil.
But you still plant, but you still pass it on.
Some receive it, some don't. But my job is to be intentional on planting seeds. And then, you know, at the end of the day, I don't have no problem with my faith, man. Then God decides on what level I go. But my job is to be focused on the seed. And so my level has went right now from elementary kids to middle school kids, high school kids, college age kids. I failed second grade. I used to get sent home all the time in trouble and stuff between second grade. By the time I felt that, when I failed second grade, I ain't like that feeling. I was like, oh, I got to fix some stuff.
Yeah.
So I went from the principal's office. Now I'm sitting in college president's offices, college dean's offices, high school principal's offices, and superintendent's offices, helping them figure out strategies to help their kids succeed. Because when you match the academic that they handle and the non-academic, put those two together, now it increases the likelihood that kids can succeed. Because at the end of the day, we know getting a good education is cool, K through 12, but at the end of the day, we know that there's some subjects that you're not going to use. Some may not use. School doesn't teach you everything. So there's a formal education, and then there's an informal education that you got to get. And that's the piece I think that's missing now, is more people that's willing to go out and plant seeds and not get caught up in whether someone is listening or not. So I got a rule. It's called the 10-80-10 rule. We can walk in anywhere right now, and you got 10% that's going to be heavily engaged. Ain't got to worry about it. Then on the back end, you got 10%, no matter what you say, they ain't caring about nothing you talking about. The key is, how do I work on my skill to pull that 80% over into that top 10% that's willing to listen? And that's what I focus on versus who listening and who not listening. Because if I focus on planting seeds, at the end of the day, those that's gonna hear. Those that will hear my voice gonna hear my voice.
Because you did your job.
Because I did my job and I worked on my craft. And that's something that I've worked hard on, man. Even, trying to find different analogies. I done use a little bit of urban poetry along the way. I didn't use verses of hip hop that I would try to memorize, just to be able to catch their attention and show like, hey man, this dude is a little different. Trying to catch my attention. And then, stuff just start. I use things that, to restart your kids' attention span, man.
So what kind of stuff are you telling these like deans and principals and school presidents that they should work into their curriculum to get these kids going? Because as someone that I kind of graduated kind of recently, 2015.
Okay.
And I had this conversation with my mom like a week ago. Like, I felt like when I got out of high school, I didn't know what the hell to do. Like, period, point blank. Like, I got out of high school and then I got a job, but it was like, without my mom, I would have had no idea, because they didn't teach you anything in school that was like actually going to help you in life. They didn't teach you how to budget. They didn't teach you how to go and buy a house. None of that stuff.
So the first thing that I would share with people is, we have to accept that school doesn't teach you everything. And so what helped me, I had to ask myself the question, what do I need to succeed?
Yeah.
So when I ask myself, what do I need to succeed, it opens the door throughout the universe for now resources can come to me. And so I have to know that for where my life is going, if I have a vision for my life, I have to find some informal things, as far as informal education, that I have to start learning that's going to make me be successful. In other words, we got to put some more work in. So we can't just get caught up on, I just did all this schoolwork. Yeah, you did your schoolwork and you got some more homework that you got to do.
Don't stop there.
And I think that's the part where I think 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was more just kids only need these subjects. Now it's kids need these subjects, and then kids need more help dealing with life. Kids need more help with career exploration and planning. And so I've been the program coordinator for Rising Scholars at Kent State Stark for the last 4 years, and then I've been traveling around the country since 2004 for my own company, Lester Sanders Limitless Incorporated, LesterSanders.com. And so I get the best of both worlds of doing things with work and being able to speak and spread my message as many as possible, man.
Lester, you doing it, man. Like, I pay attention to all that and all these positive points like that you're making. So I much respect to what you're doing, man, because it's needed. You know, the fact that one person is taking that effort to spread those seeds, you know what I'm saying, and teaching the youth and these talented athletes that is more than just on the field and on the court or whatever, man. That's dope.
And trying to get people, and no matter what you do or what your thing is, don't get caught up in just the big stage. If the big stage is for you, you're going to get called to the big stage. But there's a big stage without the big stage, and it's your thing. And, you know, one of the things I try to push when you talk about, once again, the Say What You Mean podcast, but also you being an MC, and I think this is cool for us to talk about, is like, in order to earn a living and do what you feel that you called to do, or your purpose, or what you're passionate about, you got to do it. So if you say you something, do it. Don't wait for the reward. So like, you know, I know you following what I've done over the years. I follow what you've done over the years. If you say you're an MC, be an MC.
You get out what you put in.
Put some albums out. If I'm a speaker, go talk to some kids. It's a lot of times I go places where I'm hired to talk to kids. And then there's a lot of times for reps, because I'm serious about my craft, but then also just for the cause. I'm sitting here being a benefactor of people who just gave their time. And invested in me.
You're getting out what you put
with information.
Yeah.
So it's my duty to invest in other people as well. And so if you say you're this or that, go be that. Become that. And then that's when doors of opportunity will come for you to continue being what you say you're going to become, but then also ways to earn a living in that process as well.
I like that. Lester, here's what I want to do, man. I want to go on a break, and when I come back, it's been a whole podcast full of them, but I want to do a section what you call P's Positive Point, and I want you to tell me a quote that means something to you. Like, I know this whole podcast been filled with dope quotes, but like this section is a favorite for me because it's that one quote that defines what you do. So I'm going to do a quote, you'll do one, and Micless will do one.
Okay.
And that'll be the episode, man. Because, like, I just think this is a necessary episode because not just for athletes, but people who just to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So can we do that on the break?
Yeah. I'm down with that.
Listen, you might make me put some pads on.
I got about...
I'll be on the field now. Yo, what up? John Peter MC, episode 76. Say what you mean. Lester Sanders in the house, man. First podcast, and you doing good.
First podcast, man. I think I'm getting... I think I'm feeling this thing right now.
We expect the Lester Sanders show. Nah, man, but I also want to give a shout out to sponsors too, because you had to remind me.
I was thinking about it. I was gonna bring it up again.
So sponsors for this podcast, we're currently recording it at the Hub. Our Factory is one of our sponsors. Shout out to Tim Carmody for allowing us to do the podcast here in this amazing, beautiful space. What you think of the space, Lester?
Man, this is dope, man.
You like it?
I like it, man. When you look at the different studios you say that they got here, and I haven't seen everything. I even want to take a walk around when we done, but this is a live spot where creatives can create.
Yeah. My man David walked in. What's up, David?
Hey.
David here, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's one of our sponsors, the Hub Our Factory, and Aaron Dukes at Pristine Steam Wash.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out Aaron, and Latrice Snodgrass, Equity House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Melissa Arline, melissaarline.itworks.com. So if you want a chance to win some beauty products that are organic, go to melissaarline.itworks.com, take the quiz at the bottom of the page, try to win $500.
Get that money so one of us don't have to.
So y'all know how it is, man. If you listen to the podcast, you'll know how we end our podcast, even on the positive note. P's Positive Point. We have our guest say a quote, I say a quote. You want to go first, or you want me to go? How you want to do it?
I'll lead off if that's cool.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead and lead off. Hello. What's up?
So my first quote is by urban poet Sean Carter.
Oh. You know I know that.
He said.
Doing Biggie? Now,
Hey man, you know I told you, man, you a hip hop artist. I'm a speaker with no rap skills, so you know we live vicariously through other people
I
sometimes.
love that you said his real name because you know it's different athletes. Jay-Z,
No,
Sean Carter.
so what's crazy is like in school settings, I'll say, I want to give you this quote by urban poet Sean Carter, and so a teacher be like, oh my, who's Sean Carter?
And you're like, that's home, man.
That's Jay-Z, that's home. Yeah. Or I'll be like, I'm gonna tell you about the urban poet Clifford Harris. And they be like, and they'll come up. I've even had people come up to me, man, that Clifford Harris, that was deep. I said, that's rapper T.I.
Christopher Bridges.
Yeah. So so this was a quote he said on a Fade to Black DVD.
Ooh, okay.
When it came in, he said, luck. Some people say I'm the luckiest man on the planet. He said, I like to think I stay ready. A wise man once told me that luck isn't a mystical energy dancing around the universe, randomly bestowing people with satisfaction and joy. He said, you create your own luck.
That's why Jay-Z is the greatest of all time. What's that quote mean to you, Lester?
Man, that quote means that no matter what you go through, at the end of the day, you heard me say it, it doesn't matter if you white, black, red, yellow, polka dot, male, female, poor, middle class, or wealthy, you all go through something, and you got to create what you want and stop and not just wait on things to come your way. You got to create opportunities for yourself.
Man, I like that. You got another one? You got another Clifford Harris? You got Clifford Harris?
I do got one. How I close a lot of my speeches out.
Go ahead, let's hear it.
So Clifford Harris, this is a Paper Trail.
Oh, that's a good album.
He's like, don't forget that impossible is nothing. Your environment's irrelevant. Just don't let your emotions overpower your intelligence. Refuse to give up. Your mistakes don't define you. They don't dictate where you headed. They simply remind you that time keeps ticking. Let your mind keep clicking. Never stop thinking, and beware of your decisions, and beware of the collisions and the potholes hidden in the road that you travel on your lifelong mission. Just listen. Every day is like a snapshot taken. If you live, you can learn, you can wait. Be patient.
You gotta say it in the T.I. voice on this. What's that verse mean to you, man?
Man, for me, it was what I was saying earlier. I had to keep finding clever ways to keep going, and sometimes in front of the same kids. Mm-hmm. And then also, whether they're not the same kids, but how do I restart their attention span?
Yeah.
And kids, no matter where you are at, they respond to hip hop, they respond to poetry. So it's a creative way to get the real points that I'm trying to make, like the big six, to stick, and you match it with other things that just spark their interest. I remember there's an old Cosby Show episode where Heathcliff was trying to get Rudy to take some medicine, and she wouldn't take it, some pills. So what he did, he grabbed 2 spoons and crushed the tablets up, and then he poured some orange juice on it, and then she took it that way. So to get people what they want, sometimes you got to mix it up or remix it, so how they receive it. And so that quote for me is about resiliency, man, about not quitting. Life is not going to be perfect. Yeah. Obstacles and hurdles and change is inevitable. You're going to experience some hurts, pains, traumas, and losses.
This is real.
And you're going to experience some joys and opportunities. But I can't falter when opposition or opportunity or adversity comes. You got to be able to push forward. Okay. And that's what it means for me.
I like that. Micless, what's your quote?
Yeah, so I'm just keep mine short and sweet today. So mine is, the way to get started is to quit talking, start doing. And to me, that, pretty simple. Just like we kind of talked about earlier, everyone wants to talk a big game, like, yeah, I played, I played.
Yeah.
But it's real.
Yeah.
You can talk all you want, but what are you gonna do to back up all that talk?
Yeah.
You gotta back it up. You can't just talk. And anybody can go and say like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do that, but what are you really doing to go and do that?
Yeah.
Are you saying you're going to, or are you taking the steps to do?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that's all. That's what I got today.
Okay, and my positive point is, remember this. It's simple. You are strong enough to make it happen. That's one of my quotes, but the one quote I wanted to say was from Barack Obama.
Mm.
It says, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek.
Mm.
And I was paying attention to how you talked about how that change, you know what I'm saying, thinking, I'm going to just be this athlete, this is all I'm going to do, but you literally breaking down different avenues. And that's what I want to do with hip-hop. I want to show, like, you know, you can be that change. You know, you don't got to be just a rapper. You can do a podcast, you can do art, you can do other things, and still keep it hip-hop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the change don't start with somebody else, the change starts with you.
Yep.
So that's what
Sweet.
that's what that quote means to me, man.
Okay.
This was a great episode.
Yeah,
Lester.
man.
Thank you. I got
Man, I appreciate it, man.
This was
Appreciate
a
it, man.
Episode 70.
Man, definitely, man. Appreciate you having me on. Thinking enough of me to share your platform.
Yeah, any last shout outs, man? Any shout outs when we get out of here?
Man, I want to, I believe in giving people their flowers while they're alive. Man, one isn't alive, but R.C. Hill.
Yeah, R.C. Hill.
Well, he's not dead. He's not dead.
No.
But Paul Martin.
Paul Martin.
And then John Lucas. Those were the three men who really helped kick off and push my student development career. Because I told you, RC, when I got the job being a camp counselor, Paul Martin, City of Canton Youth Development, but he passed away a few years back. And then John Lucas, my senior year in high school, man, he gave me an opportunity doing a juvenile diversion program. So I always want to make sure that I give my flowers to those who helped me along the way. And then everybody in Canton, man, this is a good place if you perceive it the right way. Good things come out of Canton if we choose to perceive it the right way.
That's why I push so hard, because it's like Canton ain't what you see in the repository.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because you can go to another city, it's a good side, and then there's the other side too. That's everywhere you go.
That's what's up. You got any shout outs, Michael Zach? You got the mic today.
The usual shout outs. Actually, my first shout is going to be the microphone. I'm not going to be here often, so I'm
enjoy it while it lasts.
I'm going to enjoy my time here while I got it. Love and shout Lester out for joining us. You know, thanks for coming out.
Appreciate
out
it.
the space here. John, always for letting me on the pod, of course. The Hub for letting us do it here. And Seaweeds for not being able to make it. Shout out Seaweeds. I'm trying to hold it down for you, my guy. So, you know.
Yeah,
I got one more, man. I got to shout out my son Elijah Sanders.
Shout out Elijah, man. Hold it down on the camera over there.
We trying to work on him being a multimedia mogul back there. Shout out my 7-year-old son, Kaylin Sanders.
Okay.
And then I want to shout out my legal baby mama going on 20 years. 20 years of marriage, Latrice Sanders. Man.
I like that. Legal baby mama. I like that. My legal baby mama.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to all the listeners, man, on the podcast. I want to shout out Lester and his son for coming. Michael and Zach for being here, man. I want to give a shout out to the city of Canton. I'm just really happy that this podcast is growing. I'm glad we can do episodes like this. It's all the student athletes out there. Shout out to y'all, man. Go hard. Keep going. Keep grinding. Chase those dreams. But understand it starts with you, and it's a life other than the field or the court.
Yeah.
Keep the grades up.
Keep the grades up, too.
Yep. The grades is important, man, because when a coach come look at you, they're going to look at your film, and then they're going right to the counselor's office. Let me see them transcripts.
Yeah.
And on average, if you ain't got a 3.2 and above, they move on to the next guy.
No matter what school,
No matter what school you are.
So stay in school, y'all. Jean Peter MC, Seaweeds, Michael Zach, Lester Sanders, episode 76. Say what you mean. We out of here, man.
Peace.